So, okay. As she so graciously said, we've known each other for a long time, and I will tell you the project we did at the health department with pregnant women that we saw through our prenatal clinic, when we had prenatal clinic, won all kinds of awards because we just blew it out of the water. And you know, a lot of you guys realize anybody that's really coming, and I mean this in a good way, I love the health department, but coming to the health department, you can make them high risk. There's often so many things going on in their life. So it was an easy blend to just say, this is part of it. You know, you see me as a nurse, you're going to see her as a social worker. This is just the way it works. So it wasn't, we weren't treating them any differently. Like we weren't saying, you have to do this, but you don't. So it really was really good. So I'm really excited that she brought that up. I hadn't thought about that in a while. So we're going to talk about the circles. Okay, what do I need to? Y'all, I am.
Let me see really quick. Press the down arrow to change your slides.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. This is what I hope you'll take away today. Let's see if I can. You'll understand the circles. We all live in circles, okay? And a lot of time we feel like we're spinning in circles, but we're going to try to put it in a context that will help you maybe have some aha moments. That's really something I'm hoping everybody will have. We're also going to learn different ways to build connections when you understand the different circles and the life experiences in those circles and how you might be able to effectively help someone. Hang on. We're going to see how your background affects how you work with other people. And you may not even realize some of your stereotypes or some of your beliefs or thoughts are coming across when you're dealing with someone. So we're going to really explore the circles. Now, a little bit of it, you got to get into it. I've tried to do everything to keep all learning styles involved. So there'll be color, there's going to be participation. The good thing to know is there are no right or wrong answers. So it doesn't matter what you shout out. If I ask for shout outs, you're not ever going to be wrong. So a lot of people are always afraid to kind of say something, you know, because then they're thinking, well, what if I look stupid amongst my peers? You don't have to worry about that, because anything you won't want to talk about, we can put in circles. Anything. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Now, I do need to ask for a volunteer. It's very simple. It will be no problem. I keep looking at you. Would you be my volunteer? It's easy. It's easy, super easy. So we're supposed to go to 10. And when we start talking about circles, because as you can probably tell a little bit from my personality, when I say we can talk about anything, we can talk about anything, I can get really off track because we're so focused on what you all want. And that's what I'm hoping we'll be able to do is toward the end of the presentation, you all tell me what you want to talk about in circles. So we finish at 10. So I thought maybe 10 till, if you could let me know time, okay? Y'all feel good about that? That way we can have some fun at the end. Okay, explore how we can bridge these gaps. Once you understand the circles a little bit better and how they all affect everybody, then hopefully you can bridge some gaps, because I can tell you every day I see this. Every day I experience an aha moment where I go, wow, that was another example of circles. So in this, I'm going to probably give you more examples than you want to know, but then you can take those examples because each of you have the same stories, okay? You just may not know it. Okay, so what are the circles? So let's just get started. So I used to, you know, in old technology, which you can tell I'm older than many of you all in the room, we use flip charts. Do y'all remember flip charts? Okay, so then we would write all over the flip charts and you could kind of see it. But what we're going to do is we're going to use circles, true examples of circles, to represent poor, the people who are in poverty, the people who are poor. We're going to use a circle to represent middle class, and we're going to use a circle to represent wealthy. Now, I have to bring wealthy in because it really is connected to the other circles. We have to talk about middle class because it's right in the middle, okay? We have to talk about poverty because really, you guys, there's so much going on in that circle. It's sometimes hard for people to understand. So then when we look at the circles, this is really a little bit better presentation. When we look at the circles, by far, huge bigger circle of people living in poverty. Now you've got to remember too, in that circle you have a beginning of the circle, or sort of one side of the circle, and then you have another side of the circle. So some people are destitute poor, and then some people are just hovering. You know, a lot of middle class is hovering where they could kind of slide back and forth, okay? And in this representation, I want to show you about wealthy. This is really what's happening. Wealthy is getting wealthier. They are getting exponentially wealthier, okay? Middle class is actually shrinking and being stretched. And then you've got the poor circle continuing to grow. So interesting, the top 1% of the wealthiest people own $52 trillion of our monies. They own more than 50% of the wealth. Now just think about that for a second. I mean, that's just mind-boggling. Now, who bears the weight of a community? Who keeps a community going? No right or wrong answers, guys. Did you say middle class? Middle class, yes, absolutely. They're the ones that volunteer. They're the ones that typically go to church, okay? And I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, okay? Church attendance is declining across the nation, okay? And a lot of people have said, well, the communities can do that, i.e. the churches should step in and do that, help fill that role. It's very difficult when the churches are getting smaller. Now, you do have mega churches, you know what I mean? And that's often more for the wealthy, believe it or not, okay? They want to put their name on something, okay? One of the smartest things they've done is churches are reaching out and providing breakfast and food, because we have so much food insecurities that will draw people into the church. And they're doing that for a reason, because that's part of the problem. So middle class pays taxes, okay? And I'm not trying to get political. We can talk about that at break. But if they were to tax the wealthy just a hair differently, okay? Because how much is too much? Do you know what I mean? If you're, like trillions, I don't even know if I can count to a trillion. Do you know what I mean? I can kind of get the gist. It used to be if you were a millionaire, you were rich. That is no longer true. Okay, that is no longer true. So how many, without raising hands or anything, think about it, how many of you are multimillionaires? Not very many people, okay? In the middle class, we are using coupons. We are looking for sales. This is what middle class, and they carry the brunt of a community, okay? So this is audience participation time. I promise you there is nothing that will be right or wrong, okay? So if you are in your car or even in this area or wherever you're from and you drive into an area that you know is a poor area, okay? Or, like when you're traveling and you need gas and you get off and you don't even have any idea where you are, okay? So what do you see in those neighborhoods? Okay, guys? A lot of garbage around. See people nodding. What else do you see?
Lots of liquor stores.
Pardon? I don't hear well. I wear hearing aids, so you're going to have to...
Lots of liquor stores.
Lots of liquor stores, yes. And what goes with liquor stores?
Payday lending.
Pardon?
Payday lending.
Payday lending. Cash advance stores. Y'all getting it? Okay. What does housing look like? A lot of government housing. Now, I will say government housing is taking a stand and not allowing dead vehicles and, like appliances and stuff to kind of sit out. But if you're not in that housing, would you agree that you see that a lot? So a lot of trash. What about kids out in a neighborhood?
Doesn't matter how old.
Right, they're out. She said, doesn't matter how old, they're out, okay? So let me try to, these are some things I want to, so you see boarded up buildings, you'll see rental properties, you see vacant lots, you see broken street lights, often lighting is not good in a poor neighborhood, broken toys, you see homeless, laundromats. I just had an aha experience helping a nonprofit that their goal is hygiene for the community. And so they're helping provide free laundry services on a Saturday. So I thought, I'll help. This is fun. I haven't done this in a while. And I remember laundromat days from college and, and all, but I am privileged to have a washer and dryer in my home, okay? So I went and they had this little box and it had rolls of quarters in it. And there was probably, I don't know, maybe $100 in there. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of quarters. Yeah, she's getting it. One machine, and it was a big machine, took 21 quarters. 21. And the regular machines took 12. I was blown away. I mean, I literally was, so I faked it pretty well, but they knew I didn't know. I didn't even know how to turn the thing on. I put 6 quarters in one and pushed it, and I thought, well, it didn't start. She goes, oh, you got to do 6 more, honey. And I put 6 more in because we had to control using it. We did 240 something loads of wash that day. And they were so appreciative. They just kept on. And then, here and I'm being honest with you, I was sort of flipping out over how expensive the washers were. Oh, honey. Then we got to the dryers. A quarter gave you 3 minutes, and they weren't real hot dryers. And I can tell you, people do not do wash like I do. And I have the privilege of being able to do wash the way I want to do wash, okay? And at any time. If I want to throw a load in at midnight, I, by gosh, can. But there were people lined up waiting, and when I got out of my car with some of the stuff that we needed, they said, are you that lady for free lunch, for free wash? And I said, yes, I am. They said, we'll help you unload your car. We're ready. Every machine was full. They were waiting for us to get there. Okay, just, y'all, what an aha moment for me. I mean, I just had it all day long. Police presence, let's talk about that. What do you think, how do you think police handle themselves when they're in this environment? Think maybe a little on guard? Yeah. So we talked about people out on the streets. Do you think they might see a group of teenagers and go, hey, ho, what are you out here for? It's 10 o'clock at night. Okay, so we're going to get into time. Please don't let me forget time because it's so fascinating. But police are on guard when they're in that area. It is not a nice area. So let's go to the next one. So let's say you're in a middle-class neighborhood, perhaps where many of us live. What do you see? Lawns are mowed, yes. Tend to try to take care. Middle class really care about their home. Okay, that's very important for them to look a certain way if they can. So yes, well-tended lawns. What else?
Dentistries, you have things you're going to work and live by, right? Everything you need, grocery stores.
Yes. Oh, he brings up such a good point. There are grocery stores. There are banks. There are libraries. There are theaters. There are chain restaurants. There's fast food everywhere. But fast food, true fast food, and I'm not knocking it because Lord knows their french fries and Cokes are really good, but Rally's, that is fast food for the poor. Okay, and because Arby's is getting really expensive to eat. Do you know what I mean? So there are some places that truly as restaurants, but for middle class, in a middle class area, getting to go to O'Charlie's or Chili's or Texas Roadhouse is entertainment as well for the middle class. It's like I've worked all the time, so somebody's going to wait on me and I'm going to have me a good steak. And while I'm at it, throw in a margarita. Okay, but that is really entertainment for us. And that is typically not as achievable for the people living in poverty. So let's talk about else. What kind of cars do you see? SUVs. Yeah, I don't know who said it, but SUVs is perfect. Often you see 2 cars because you've got 2 people working. If they can, okay? So in poor, you don't see that. But ironically, in poor, it is a status for them to have as nice a car as they possibly can have. Now, they may be living in a tent, honey, but they may have a very nice car because that is very important in their relationships, okay? So here are some things. See, coffee shops, okay? One of the best ways to save money is stay out of Starbucks. Okay, or if you've got to get coffee out, McDonald's coffee is very good coffee and it's a whole lot cheaper. Okay, you see big box stores, you see churches, banks. That is so ironic because in banks we develop a relationship. Middle class develops a relationship with a bank. We have a checking, we try to have savings. Often we have like a Christmas club account or a vacation account. I know people use debit cards a lot. You have a relationship. So, and you have the ability with that relationship that should you have needs, you can talk to that bank. So like a loan, or if you need to try to get another car or something like that. The poor don't. Okay, they don't have a relationship. It's cash advance, which all of us should know is just horrible. I mean, it's just raping people, okay? And they don't realize it because that's what's in their neighborhood. Okay, and then when they go in a bank, gosh forbid, because they have no banking experience and they bounce a check, they get penalized like crazy. And they already didn't have money because they wrote a bad check And now you're giving them a fee of like $50. You're just digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper for them. Okay, so when we start in a little bit talking more about gambling and if money should come in, somebody remind me that we need to talk about banks because it's so critically important. She mentioned well-kept yard. You have walking trails, neighborhood association signs that say that this neighborhood cares about how it looks and we're going to meet about it. Golf courses, grocery stores is super important. In poor circles, you'll see so many convenience stores, and we know that's the most expensive snack food you can buy. But a lot of people, that's all that's there for them. And they talk about in many cities that a lot of people do not have access to good, healthy groceries. And then they say we need more vegetables and fruit, okay, but you got to have them, and they can't look pitiful. I mean, they have to. So they've tried in our area, I don't know if it's everywhere, where people can use the farmer's market, okay, and they can use like WIC vouchers and get some groceries. A lot of them have no idea what to do with it. They've never done this before. I worked with a group of kids and I said, how many of y'all have had pineapple? Everybody in the room raised their hand. I said, okay. So I brought in a pineapple. None of them had had fresh pineapple. They'd had canned pineapple. And there's nothing wrong with canned pineapple. I mean, we all use it. But when I started, they were like, what are you doing? Same story, I got some Asian pears. Now, if you don't know what an Asian pear looks like, look kind of like an apple, okay, but it really is a pear. So I brought them in, I told them they were Asian pears, and they're like, Miss Angela, they're apples. And I said, no, seriously, they're Asian pears, I promise you that's what they are because this is how I got them, and So the whole class, they were like, she thinks those are pears, and they're not. They made fun of me, but they had never seen it before. Okay, so food is huge for the people in poverty. We worked at the health department. They wanted to do, this is a true story, guys, wanted to do a brochure for people so that we could pass it out in clinic. And it would help you pick healthy choices when you went to eat. And we had nutritionists and nurses and so had a little team together, and I was the nurse. And you can tell I like to eat. Okay, so let's get real. So they talked about, well, why don't we put in there that when you go to Red Lobster for lunch, that you save half of your lunch portion for another meal. Fine, but the folks I took care of don't go to Red Lobster. They wouldn't even think about going in Red Lobster. So you have to be real with what's going on, okay? There's a reason that bologna sandwiches and peanut butter and jelly have kept people alive forever, because a lot of people, that's what they're surviving on. So when you look at some of this, do you agree? Do you all agree? All right, so let's go to the next one. What do you see when you go into wealthy? And we're not going to spend a lot of time on that because, that's not really what we're about today. Pardon? Big mansion homes, yes. Pardon? Horse farms. Yeah, no, absolutely, horse farms. We are going to talk about horses in a little bit. Oh, baby. Say it again.
I don't know, I'm not wealthy, so I'm not used to those neighborhoods.
Well, you see like gated, here, let's pull it up. You see historic homes, you see public art a lot of places, gated communities. They have groundskeepers. It's a higher level, like when she put her hands up, big houses. Now, just as a comment, I look at some of these houses that are being built and Bowling Green's exploding. I mean, I don't know how many of y'all are from Bowling Green, but Bowling Green is exploding. But I think, how do you afford these houses? I just worry about that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So they have mega churches, they have private planes, pedigreed pets, okay? They often won't go to the shelter and get a pet. They want a certain breed. There's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. But you do tend to see it more in the wealthy group. Multiple car households, often they have a car just for fun. Or they'll have like an antique car because, it's collectible. They might have motorcycles and jet skis. So they have a lot available to them. So let's talk about the police. Police come in this area. What are they looking?
Make sure nobody's stealing their stuff.
Right. They're looking for people because they're gonna be, but they're not scared in this environment. Okay, because this environment's got their back. There's lights, there's services, there's things in that area. Okay, so in this, to truly understand the circles, you have to understand the mental models. So when I bring some of this up, please don't think I'm trying to say that you don't get it, but there's often the point of where you're just looking at it for me, okay? How does this affect me? What do I need to do? Me. That's all I care about right now. But then you also have it where people in their work, Maybe a team group does stuff. You all that are getting your higher degrees to get your gambling, which is wonderful. That's a team that you're involved in. So, you look at it where it's not just me and look at what we are going to be able to accomplish, okay? And then you get to the community. So when I moved from working in the hospital setting, I worked ER and critical care, and I absolutely loved it. But when I went to the community health, we started writing grants on breast cancer awareness so that we could see a region and take care of them. Or we were looking at dental issues, who had dental issues. We were looking at a very broad picture of how could our work impact many. Okay, so you really have to know where is that person coming from? Because often when we're meeting with somebody, they're all worried about them. Okay, that's really the only thing that's got them concerned, or perhaps their loved ones. And we're coming at it from, this is my job, this is what I'm supposed to do, I have 15 minutes to see you, and we gotta get it done, okay? And then often people above us are saying, and as a community aspect, these are some things that we should be working on, and it's tough. Okay, so Dr. James Comer, he's a renowned child psychologist or psychiatrist, and if you can read some of his work, it is just remarkable. But when you read it, you think, we all know that. This is not new stuff, but he is so articulate. But what he says is there is no significant learning without a relationship, okay? So when you think about that, and it can be anybody. It could be anybody in this room. It could be a coach. It can be a friend. It can be a parent, the doctor that's taking care of them, the priest or the minister. It can be coaches, counselors, all of you all. But you have to develop a relationship. So I can tell you, because I am terrible at names, okay? I'm just horrible at names. And I think it's because of my career, how many names have come, I'm just not good at it. I mean, I freely admit. So often when I get somebody's business card, I'll write on it, like tall, and where I met them, because that I can remember. Do you know what I mean? It's funny how, but to the life of me, I can't remember their name. But that does help. So, but anyway, okay. So relationships are so important, and time after time after time, you see it happening. Now, his work predominantly dealt with children living in poor circumstances and how scholastically that affected them. That's really his main focus of work, but he's just remarkable, you guys. Okay, so a lot of people don't really understand the difference between generational poverty and situational poverty, and it's really easy, okay? Situational poverty means something's happened where you're not getting your pay, okay? People are 2 paychecks away from significantly changing their life. Just 2, okay? Now, if you think about that, often people get paid every 2 weeks. So within a month, people can start losing their homes, not be able to pay for their cars. Now, they tell you in all financial stuff, you need to have at least 6 months in savings or held somewhere for all these emergencies. Most of the people in poor don't have it. It's just a pipe dream. It just doesn't happen, okay? So really, generational is when it's been truly generations, like would be my grandmother, my mom, me, when generations have lived in poverty. Now, often, when you see generational poverty, there's stuff that's happened. Usually matriarchal families, so women-headed families, sometimes it's hard for me to say, and often there has not been a male involved, there's not much education, and there is no skill. So, they don't really have anything that they can, so often they just barter. You see a lot of barter with people that are poor. Okay, but does it matter? Because people really get caught up in all this. Okay, they really do. They go, well, they've been living on welfare for years, and you just want to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. But if somebody's hungry in this day and time, are we not prioritizing wrong? No one should be hungry. No one should be hungry. Okay, so we're going to talk what the slide is, and then we're going to kind of do a lot of digression, if you all will indulge me. So back in 1965, when they started trying to figure out how to do assistance to people, they got this lady who was brilliant, was absolutely supposed to be top-notch, and they said, you figure it out. Help us figure this out. So she said that they would consider 1/3 of the benefits that persons could get would cover food, leaving 2/3 to cover rent, utilities, clothing, entertainment, medical care, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, y'all see a problem? Okay. Problem, huge problem, huge problem. Because what we're seeing now is poverty, people living poor, are often paying 70% of their income just to have a roof over their head. So, okay, think about it. Now, you know, let me show you this slide. Oh, no, wait. I forgot I wanted to tell you something. Okay, if this isn't bad enough, let's briefly talk about health insurance. Just ever so briefly. Okay, so when you look at that, they say it's called hyperinflation. Since COVID, since 2020, healthcare costs have hyperinflated. That means at 188% increase. 188. Now, we're also looking at, they're saying that our insurance rates could go up as much as 9%, which is the highest it's been in 15 years. You know, like since something's happened. 15 years, okay, we're at 9%. Employee contributions where you'll have to do out of pocket, they're saying could be 6 to 7% increase coming out of your pocket. If you start looking at the Affordable Care Act, oh my, okay? Kentucky is hovering around 20%, which I thought was bad, but it is not, okay? And when you look at other places like Arkansas is looking at a 66% increase. Georgia is looking at a 31% increase. Florida is looking at a 32% increase. So then I think, well, Kentucky's numbers aren't too bad. But unfortunately, if you look at the state, like north, south, east, west, south is where the hit is the hardest. The South, big time. We're up here in the 20s and 30s, up to 60s. We're up in the northeast area, they're at like 9%, which 9%, I'm not knocking that, but we are significantly worse. And why do you think that is? Pardon?
Pre-existing health conditions.
Pre-existing health conditions. Pardon?
Poverty in the South.
Poverty in the South. That's exactly right. We just don't take care of ourselves. You know, a lot of people don't go to the doctor. Only 8.2% there are 8.2% of Kentuckians that do not have health insurance. And we're a 4 million state. So, you know, think about that for a second. Okay, so and I was trying to think, it's like 10%, 20 to 30%, West is like 19%. The South predominantly is going to get crucified with this Affordable Care Act. And we already know if they're already paying this much just to survive, to have a roof over their head, how are they going to afford health care? How are they going to afford food? How are they going to do anything? Okay? Now, I got to do this presentation, I've done it in some degrees many, many times, and a long time ago, probably 10 years ago, somebody said, we were talking about stuff, and they said, what do you think is going to happen? I said, it's going to get worse. And guys, it's worse, okay? And it's going to get worse. So we have to really be cognizant of that because it does affect us as well as our institution, as well as the people that we're serving, okay? So let's do this. We all carry hidden rules that really affect how we do everything, how we meet people, how we get up in the morning, you know, everything that we do. So you have to know your circles, okay? The more we listen, the more we talk, the more we meet new people, the more we learn, you become more open. You become a little bit more receptive to ideas. Just met this charming man here doing a marvelous program. Never heard of it, okay? But trust me, when I go home, I'm going to tell people about it, okay? Because it's good. And that's what makes things work and make things get better. Strong relationships begin with mutual respect. I'm going to bring Ronsalyn in. When we first met, we clicked. She said, this is what I do. I said, this is what I do. We'll do it really well. And we did. Okay? You need that. You need that respect. How time is valued. So we're going to kind of get back into the circles. And this is really one of the best examples that I can show you in the different circles. So when you look at the circles of poor, how do you think they handle time? She's shaking her head no. They don't, guys. They live in the present. They're trying to get through today, got through today, now I'm going to start tackling tomorrow. No thought about Sunday, okay, well, what we're going to do. It is truly day to day. Truly day to day. Now, how do you think middle class handle it? Pardon? I didn't hear. I am so sorry. Planning, absolutely. The decisions that they make, okay? They are looking at a time schedule. I got to do this at a certain time. I got to do this. They're very much more regimented on what's happening with their time. Now, not to say that they don't over-volunteer or, lose track of time. I don't mean that. But they truly try to keep up. I have a doctor's appointment at this time, and I'm going to make it. I need to get my oil changed in my car, my appointments. We're very much into that, okay? How do you think the wealthy are? Yeah, they really don't care. They look at past traditions, what's kind of expected, what's traditional for them to do, but often they have helpers. I use this example, and I think John Travolta is really an amazing actor. I really do. And several years ago, he was recognized as Father of the Year. And great picture of him. I mean, I was just like, oh, that is so cool. So I thought I'd read the article. Guys, he has a chauffeur, they have a cook, they have a housekeeper, they have a nanny, they have a groundskeeper. All the stuff that most people have to run around and try to figure out how to do, they had, because he's so wealthy, he had somebody that could do that for him. So I thought, well, anybody could be the Father of the Year if you didn't have to worry about putting food on the table and having them in clean clothes and shopping and hauling them around. So I'm not taking away from him. I have friends that are in this situation and they don't realize it. They often don't realize just how lucky they are. A friend of mine has a nanny and two housekeepers. She has one that does like the routine stuff that we do all the time. And then she has one that comes like every other month and they do what she refers to as deep cleaning. Okay, now see, that's like spring cleaning, but it happens quite a bit in her house. And she's all the time telling me, I am just so tired. I am just so tired. And you want to go, bless your heart, because they don't get it. And they really don't understand it, okay? All right, so how are relationships? Oh, let me tell you can I tell you another funny about the libraries? When I worked at the health department, I realized none of our prenatal clients coming in had a relationship with the library. And I go to the library all the time. I love the library. Drug my kids to it, love the library. And at the library, as you all know, there's all kinds of references and resources and videos and all kinds of stuff. So we were like, wow. So I talked to the library, and the library said, okay, great, we'll help you get library cards. They brought a library person. Do you remember this? They brought a library person out as we were going through clinic. We were like just automatically going to sign you up for a library card. And so some of them checked out books. They never brought them back. Okay, due date didn't mean anything to them, okay? Now, it would by us, because we didn't want to pay no fines. So one of the smartest things libraries have done is fine-free, because they really want that clientele to come in, use the resources that are in there, whether it's checking out a sewing machine now or yard equipment that you can check out or all kinds of stuff that the library has besides books, videos. It's amazing what's available. In Owensboro, you can check out musical instruments. Okay, so it's great. Okay, so let's talk about relationships. This is one of my favorite ones. I love the time thing because we see it all the time. When in time, if somebody came up, if you and I were friends and we were kind of poor, living in the same area, and she said, I've had a flat tire, I need help. What do you think I would do? Now we're friends living in the poor circle. Help! It didn't matter if I had a doctor's appointment, a WIC appointment, was supposed to be at work. Didn't matter. She needed my help, okay? So when you talk with poor people, it's all about relationships, truly. If you live near me, if you look like me, you're fine, okay? No problems. Do y'all agree? If you're in my environment, if you're in my circle and you look like me, you're good. You're good. If you know somebody that I know, so it's not a direct link, that works too. Because that person's pretty cool because they're in my circle, okay? Now, how do you think middle class, or let's look at poor, they look at familiarity, who's in their circle, who's around them, who looks like them. How do you think middle class do? How do they handle relationships?
Transactional.
Pardon?
Maybe transactional.
Oh, that's a really nice word. They are interested in credentials, okay? And what happens a lot, let me pick on you because I asked you to volunteer. They'll come up and they'll go, hi, what's your name?
Hannah.
Hannah, nice to meet you, Hannah. Now what do you do? We do that real quick because we quickly try to figure out with what they tell us, Did they go to school? Are they, with it? We really quickly sum them up, okay? We do that a lot. Hi, what's your name? David, where are you from?
I'm from Lexington.
Lexington area, okay. Bing, 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 okay. We do that as a way in middle class to truly identify and figure out where that person is. Now, I'm an implant from the areas that I worked. I was not born in Kentucky, but I am still asked, and guys, I am 65 years old. I am still asked, what high school did you go to? And part of it is they're trying to kind of figure me out. Does that make sense? Middle class is notorious for this, okay? And when you answer, it really starts putting you in the little box, okay? Now, how do you think wealthy do? I put it up. It's introductions, okay? So, Jeremy, right? That's an interesting spelling of Jeremy, too. So I would go, hey, Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm well.
I'm
thanks.
good. Who's that lady over there with the dark glasses? Do you
Man.
know? You don't know? Do you know her?
No.
Okay.
I
well,
mean, I probably do.
okay.
I'm
But
sure
what I'm
more
trying to get to
things.
is I would never go straight up to the person if I'm in this circle. I would never go straight up and say, hi, I'm Angela, I would go through somebody else. You try to find somebody that knows them and say, tell me about them. I need to know a little bit about them. And then I'd
wearing
want
glasses.
you to do the introduction. And in real life, he says he doesn't know her. But you would find somebody that did. You'd go, do you know her? You'd keep trying to find, because you would never go straight up and introduce, okay? Which I think is really interesting, and you will see it happen, okay? Okay, clothing and appearance. How do you think the poor handle this? Yeah, exactly right.
I mean, I was in that. Like,
Oh!
grew up poor, like, very poverty.
Okay.
I know.
Right. So her comment was they wear what they have. Okay? What their clothing is how they relate to other people. Now, let me pop this up. So clothing is worn for function and as much as identity. Okay? So let me give the example of court. I volunteered for CASA. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. Court Appointed Special Advocates. Absolutely phenomenal program. And we would have girls that were going to have to, young women, that were going to have to go to court. And we'd say, now you need to be at court and we'll be there and da-da-da-da-da. Well, then we never sometimes realize we need to say, well, what are you planning on wearing? Okay? Because for them, dressing up might what we not think would be appropriate at all. Because middle class, if you look back, we very clearly choose what we wear to sort of match the occasion that we're involved in. And we have the ability to do that. Now, we might buy our clothes with coupons, and we are big sale shoppers. Let me tell you, middle class is great at that. And they are also smart at 90 days, same as cash, but they will have it paid off. If you don't, like if you miss that window, then they nail you. Well, a lot of people in poor circle aren't good at time. They don't have a relationship with the bank. They really don't know how to handle it. And they think, if I'm close, it won't matter. And then they get hit with all this interest. But middle class handles that really, really well. But middle class would make sure that if you were going to court, that you looked a certain way. Because we recognized the court system, regardless of how much money anybody makes, is for the wealthy. Was designed by the wealthy, written by the wealthy, controlled by the wealthy. It's all the wealthy. So now, you think about it. Middle class, we sort of can see this is what we need to do. So button-down shirts, chino pants, maybe a jacket, hair clean, not a lot of makeup. I mean, we would be very, very comfortable with how we look, but it would have to be a certain way. It's not the same for the wealthy, okay? Because they often don't even have to go to court for stuff. I can give an example of that. But look how far away it is from somebody way over here in poor. And they often don't even understand the language. Can I give an example as a nurse? Do you all like the examples, or does it? Yeah. So when I was working ER, we coded someone and they died, and we'd worked valiantly hard on them. And so I went out, and I was the one supposed to tell the family, this person had died and all that. So, and I'm hustling around and all that. And I said, he arrested, meaning as a nurse, heart quit beating, he kept breathing. And she said immediately, well, he hadn't done drugs in a long time. She thought I meant police arrested. Okay? So when you start, you have to realize where they're coming from, even in the words that you use and how you deal with them. Now, clothing for the wealthy, I have a great story to tell about this. They are into designer, and they don't really care about, if it's on sale. Middle class is really into sales. So I volunteer for Women's Guild of Owensboro. They do a spring luncheon. It's a lot of fun, you all. You get to see a home, and you get to have chicken salad and all that. Well, we serve it on real plates, okay, which we rent. And then when they're picked up and you're done, then they go behind the curtain and they're scraped off and put back in the containers because we got to get them back, okay? It's not a job a lot of people want, but somebody's got to do it. So one lady had surgery. This is a true story, you all. Had surgery, and she said, could I work in the back? And I was the one planning who worked where. And I said, sure, we'd love you to do that. She came in. Now, I did not realize this, but her tennis shoes were $800 tennis shoes. Now, she's working in the back, scraping plates, and wearing $800 tennis shoes. Now, I did not notice that they were $800 tennis shoes, but she thought nothing of it at all. Okay, if middle class even had $800 tennis shoes, they sure ain't wearing them to scrape plates off in the back curtain. But that was her life. So she did not see it as anything different. We had a lady come to talk to a group that was impoverished, and we were trying to help them get established in the community. And the lady that came in was dressed, I don't even know the names of some of the stuff, but she had like Gucci glasses and a Louis Vuitton purse. And, so she comes in and she flops all her stuff down and all her jewelry and finery. And I thought, you've lost them. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. All they see is wealth. They don't hear anything else, and there's no relationship there to them. So you have to be cognizant of that. Okay, anything you want, we can put in circles. Whoop. So this is what I'm hoping Hannah will help me with. But is there anything that's burning, yearning that you all want to talk about? We're going to get into gambling stuff here in just a little bit. Is there anything, or we want to move on and then we'll come back? Okay. Banks, yeah, we're going to talk about banks when we get into. Oh, say it again? Funerals, okay. That is an industry that soon will be in trouble, okay? A lot of private individual funeral homes are being taken over by big companies, okay? Even in small rural areas, you're starting to see it. The average funeral, and I haven't checked recently, but when I checked back in like 2020, 2021, was a little over $10,000, okay? What you're seeing is the poor are often not doing it. They may have a wake, they may have a party or something at somebody's house or do something. I'm not saying they don't recognize that the person has died, but often they're not doing that, okay?
Or you prepay.
Say it again?
Or you prepay. Yeah, they do prepay now, like you can
Start.
now and have it paid off by the time you die.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandparents did that years ago.
Okay, but just think about that for a second. Okay, just think about that for a second. Yeah, just think about it. So I can tell you, we had bodies when I worked ER that family wouldn't come and claim, and they became basically like wards of the state to take care of. It's a huge issue. There's a lot of money. One of the larger funeral homes that I worked with in public health, we had to worry about, pandemic occurred, if we have a massive amount of people that die, how would we handle it? Because it would totally overwhelm the system really fast. So in working with them, absolutely fabulous. I cannot say enough good stuff about them, but we were saying like, how many funerals do you do, and and all that. And then I had done the math of, I've heard that 10,000. Now some cost more. I mean, that's like the average cost. So that means some are costing a whole lot more. But in 1 year, they made over $4 million. Just by the number of, and then taking my minimal number and doing the math. So probably even more than that. And then they do lose some money because there's some people that never pay. But the thought of it's just like retirement. They're telling us now we need to start planning for retirement as soon as you graduate or can make any kind of money. But just think about that for a second, okay? So we'll come back to this because this can get fired. We can get fired up over that. Okay, This is the 2025, and I apologize. I looked up the 2026. I thought I changed the slide, and I didn't. But for individuals, it's up $310, and for family of 3, it's up $670. It is supposed to be related to inflation as those numbers go up. All right. Alaska and Hawaii are exclusions because they're so expensive to live there. But there is argument that it costs a whole lot more money to live in California than it does to live in Kentucky. So there is even argument in the United States, should that be changed some? Okay. Who's most at risk? Kids. Kids are the most at risk because they can't do anything about it. Okay. They didn't choose their parents, so they're in this circumstances. So inflation has eroded child care assistance since 1970s, okay? It's not keeping up. So if you've got your child in daycare, often it's taking a substantial chunk of your check to cover it. So back on relationships, remember what we talked about. If you're in my circle, you live next to me, you look like me, you're good. So as a nurse, we used to be baffled by childcare. How are people doing it? Well, what they're doing is, if you look like me and you'll work. You know her and I know her, so can you watch my kids? Now, middle class doesn't do it that way. Let me tell you. We check out the daycares. We have to know everything about them. We have to know their parents. Where you're going. And when my child, my oldest, when she started going to kindergarten and then would ride the bus over to the daycare, which was less than a mile, you all. There was a line, the first time they were supposed to do it, there was a line of parents behind the bus, all of us watching our kids, making sure they got on, they got off. Okay, poor don't have that luxury, okay? They really, really don't. So when you're concerned about childcare, it's really about if they know them, that works. And that's where sometimes they really don't know them. And things can happen. Same thing in middle class. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but you see the vulnerability there. There is no worry about who their parents are or anything like that. It's, you're in my circle, I need help. You might ask for my help, so we're going to share. And I need you to help watch my kids. Okay. Another thing we're seeing is the people who are head of households in their 30s, their salaries are just slashed. And now with AI, a lot of jobs that were supposed to be secure jobs may be going away because AI may be able to do that. And please know I'm not in any way an expert on that. We are also seeing more female head of households, okay, where it's a single mom trying to raise children. And if you don't have a village, and you may have to create a village if you don't have family, but you are seeing more grandparents taking care of children. You're starting to see more people live together again, where it used to be we spread out. Mom may live in Owensboro, but then kids are in New York and somebody else is in California, and but you're starting to see people come back together because of expense, because of cost, okay? You're seeing more divorce and less marriages, okay? Now, I don't know why necessarily you're not seeing many marriages, but it seems like the younger generation that I have dealt with, which is, my limited circle, they're okay living together. That's totally fine. Now, I can understand if you're real old and you want to live with somebody because you don't want to mess up any of your benefits and stuff. I have no problem with that. But I do think the young don't see marriage. Pardon?
It's the same reason you get less benefits if you're married?
You
So-
lose your health care if your wife's on Medicaid.
So I think you're going to keep seeing this. I think, you're going to.
Yeah, we can't afford to get married.
Yeah. Well, and okay, weddings, they have proven, and I have trouble saying this, but the higher your wedding costs are, the shorter your marriage. So, seriously, there's a very wealthy family in Owensboro, Kentucky. They spent $150-something thousand on their daughter's wedding. Now, it wasn't the biggest wedding in Owensboro by any, but that's a lot of money, you all. 6 months. Lasted 6 months. And that money was just gone. So people really have kind of lost their mind. And as a person going to a wedding, now people are expecting a meal and an open bar, and it's just like, okay, when I got married, we went in the basement and had punch and cake. So it's just not the same anymore. But I do think marriage is in trouble, I don't, and you know, there's something about having a partner and having that commitment. I'm married, so let me, you know, and I'm happily married. So, you know, I look at it as totally different. I want that for people. You know, when I got sick, I could not have gotten through all my care without my husband. Okay? And honestly, in that poor circle, you might be the best friend, okay? And you might really have needs, but then if something else affects that person, they're going to drop you, honey, okay? And I don't mean that bad. When people come in the housing project, you're assigned a certain number of people that can live in that house. And if you let somebody come and stay on your couch or floor or whatever, which a lot of people do, it can jeopardize your housing. So, you know, really, it's so tough. It is so tough. Okay, so there's 3 principles of poverty. Basically, it boils down, if you're living in poverty, you have stressors that many other people don't recognize, okay? And that stress does affect your health and your mental health, your physical health. It affects you, whether you think it does or not. If you're worried every day about where am I going to eat, or am I going to be able to pay the rent, or it's like seeing the bear, you know, all the time. Your adrenaline is cooking, okay? What poverty looks like with a degree. A lot of college graduates not only have college debt, they can't get a job of what they want, okay? And as I say here, 3.6 million college graduates live below the poverty line. Representation is out of reach. Now, I tried to find this because I hear it on the news, but it used to say that if you wanted to run for Congress, it cost basically $6 million. I bet you now we're pumping a whole lot more money into people's campaigns. And again, not trying to be, but it looks like the Democrats have got, the Republicans have got lots of money to put in that. And I would so love them to say, give 10 million that you're putting in whoever's campaign, and let's feed people, or let's help housing, or let's do something, okay? So we've really kind of got out of that. In all the organizations that I've sat on boards with, if you're attached nationally to a group, they always say, we want you to have better representation of your community. Well, it is very hard to get poor people to sit at the table. They can't come to the meetings. They can't eat where you go if you meet at a restaurant, and often the other people don't even think about stuff like that. There are childcare issues. There's so many reasons that keep them from the table. Plus, they don't want to be the token. Do you know what I mean? They may not feel that they're really respected on here. You just want me on here because, and I mean this in all due respect, because the community I live in is such a small percent of African Americans, they really resent it. When you sometimes say, will you please serve on our board? Not seeing it as a compliment is, oh, you want that to be able to check that off. Okay. Poverty impacts, the biggest issue related to neglect is poverty, where kids don't have what they need for like school clothes, lice treatment, food. School nurses keep snacks and stuff in their offices because a lot of kids are hungry. And schools do a great job feeding children, great job. You worry about when schools are closed. How are the kids eating? Schools are doing backpack programs. So the schools are invaluable for feeding some of our children. But often they're truant because they don't have anybody to really time. One guidance counselor gives out alarm clocks, okay? And I think that's kind of brilliant. One, you don't see them as often, but she teaches them how to set the alarm, and put it in your room or wherever you're sleeping, because a lot of them don't have bedrooms. They're on the floor or couch or something like that. Okay, education. Oh, many families are just 2 paychecks away. I really want you to stop and think about it. Now, I know I've wanted my check, like I can't wait till we get paid, I got to do something. But typically, 2 checks away, you're thinking about where am I going to be living, what are they going to do, and when you add gambling in it and all that, which we're going to get into some of those slides, it makes it even worse. Okay, so let's talk about Kentucky briefly. Housing, we're supposed to be 47% lower than the national average. Groceries, we're supposed to be about 39% cheaper than the national average. But, again, that's put up against New York and, California. Every time I go to the grocery store, I see stuff going up, okay? We're ranked number 10 in affordability, according to the U.S. News, 14 in cost of living, ranked 39 as the best overall state. That's Kentucky. Okay, so I looked up some stuff. I thought this was kind of interesting. In Owensboro, there's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's $1,250 a month. Bowling Green, it's a house, And I didn't pick like gargantuan, it's 1,700 square feet. I mean, that's a nice size house. I'm not, but I didn't pick one of those like, like that kind of house. And that's 270,000. 3-bedroom, 1 bath over here is $1,350 a month. Scottsville, which is a booming area in this area, 2,200 square foot house, $350,000. I mean, that's a lot, I think. Okay, so pause for just a second to think: is food, hygiene, housing, being able to get somewhere, water, is that a right? Shouldn't everybody have that? Okay, now let's talk about bottled water. Bottled water is the most expensive water out there, okay? Bar none, bottled water. But how many people use bottled water? It's crazy. Who would have thought, 10 years ago or so, that if I put some water, people are going to buy it, and people buy it like crazy. It's a billions and billions dollar industry. When people lose water, like in Flint, Michigan, they were expected to be able to buy water, and they really couldn't, and there really wasn't even enough for everybody. So water is really expensive. When a water plant comes in, like Dasani or really any of them, they get all kinds of tax benefits and incentives to come into the area, but they doesn't make the water cheaper when you're buying it, okay? Bottled water is super expensive. That's why when you see like containers like you guys have got, those are brilliant because you can refill those up. And there's nothing wrong with tap water. A very good friend of mine that is wealthy, they only do bottled water, except for their child they just adopted. And what she'll tell me is, Miss Angela is what she calls me. She goes, Miss Angela, I drink tap water. Because see, that's all she's ever known. Do you know what I mean? But the new family she's just gotten adopted into, they don't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, so let's talk about Kentucky. It's a commonwealth. There's 3 other places, Massachusetts and Pennsylvania and Virginia. Okay, so yeah, we're all commonwealths, and that was after the Revolutionary War. If you said you were a commonwealth, it said you were for the people and by the people and would help the people and all. We're 83 to, you probably want me to stop moving around, 83 to 87% white. Okay, we're, and depends on statistics, 7 to 9% black, and then less than 10% of other. Okay, but that number is increasing and has increased steadily. We have about 6.4% of our Commonwealth is non-English speaking, okay? And of that, it's a lot more difficult here in Bowling Green, but in Owensboro, a lot of that is Spanish, okay? Okay, let's see what else. There's over 235 veterans, 235,000 veterans. There are 16 million across the United States. And the reason I bring veterans up, and you all are so much more knowledgeable about gambling than I will ever be, but veterans are an at-risk group, okay, for getting into gambling. So when you see that we've got 235,000, that's a lot of folks that could be at risk, okay? So I apologize. All I want for you visual people is see color. That's all I need you to do, okay? So poverty rates in Kentucky vary, but where they're darker, can you kind of see the darker colors? That's the worst area of poverty. So it's across Kentucky, but very much concentrated in this area here, okay? 42% of that population is rural, where on average a community is about 25% rural. So we're way more rural in that area. So then persistent poverty, which means back to that kind of generational, this has been going on for a long time. Again, color only. I'm not trying to bore you with the slides, but see where all the color is. Okay? This is definitely the poorest area in Kentucky. Not to say that there aren't poor other areas. You saw that with the color, but big time concentration there. Okay, we just did that one. Why are you not moving? Well, why? What is it? Hang on, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Help.
Battery's dead.
Oh.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay. Battery's dead. I'm getting a sip of coffee. Do you need that one over there, or?
Yes. I thought I had a second one.
So just, Can you guys see that decently enough to pick up color well enough? Okay, because that's all I really want you to see. Oh, yay. All right, thank you. Being poor affects your health, okay? And with the cost of medicines increasing rapidly and common medicines, like Lasix and digoxin being harder to find, this is a huge problem in Kentucky, all right? So when you look at the colors again, you see it everywhere. Okay, I'm not by any, I know the color's not great. I thought it'd be a little bit darker. But you see again in Kentucky, the Appalachian area, Appalachia, I say it wrong every time, but that area is the poorest area in Kentucky, notedly, okay? When you look at tax bases, if the area is poor, the schools are in trouble because they're not getting the money. And again, look, you see it everywhere. I'm not saying it's not, but it is very heavily concentrated in the far eastern part of our state. Okay, again, it's everywhere. So there's all this issue about trying to help private schools and all that. We need to be helping public education. We need to recognize teachers for what they're doing. We need, in my opinion, we need to recognize that institution because they're holding our children for years and trying to help mold them. We need to recognize that excellence that they often provide. So when we talk about Appalachia, it's a 2,000 miles area, 12 states are involved, all of West Virginia, and then you can see here, so it's 54 counties in Kentucky. We have 120 counties, so a good percent of our counties are in Appalachia. Now, biggest growth areas right now, this county we're sitting in right now, this area, it's huge growth. Scottsville, huge, exploding growth. And they do think a lot of that is because of the proximity to I-65, the transportation routes. You can get into any big municipality, another city very quickly. So a lot of growth here, they do truly relate to I-65. So Appalachia Proud, are y'all familiar with that? There's a lot of artisans in that area, and you still see old techniques of smithing and basket weaving and quilting and dulcimers being made and all that. So they're really trying to promote that to help bring money into the community because these areas are so poor. It's kind of like Kentucky Proud, but specifically for those counties. Okay, poverty in relationship to gambling. For many families, gambling isn't entertainment, it's hope. Now, how I look at gambling is it's a seduction. They seduce you, okay? They offer free money. They say, we've got entertainment. We've got food. We've got hotels. Come one, come all. And we should know, in middle class, ain't nothing free, okay? And when you walk into these beautiful establishments, the house wins, okay? The house wins. But they are being seduced. And they go after the young. They go after veterans. They go after the uneducated. They go after the people in disadvantaged areas. Look at what's happened with the Native American Indians. And it's interesting to me, in Kentucky, if you're looking at tourism stuff, just about anywhere you plot to look at, they tell you how close you are to a casino. So you need to think about that. We are promoting this constantly. There are over 10,000 electronic gaming devices in Kentucky. There are 78 different lottery tickets, okay? And lottery, which helps fund education, is not used nearly as much. 4 times more is going into these electronic betting systems and sports betting than lottery. So when we look at where do we get our bang, we ain't getting it from the electronic gaming devices, guys, and sports betting. That's not where money's coming in. We're getting it from the lottery. So that was really shocking to me. But I'm going to talk about this guy. Do y'all know who this is? Okay. David Bromstad, if I'm saying it right. He's 52 years old, super outrageous. He's an interior decorator, an artist. He went to Ringling Art School, wanted to be a Disney animator, got a job at Disney and hated it because as an animator, you're doing one picture and they move this way, and then you do another picture and they move this way, and he needed something with more stimulus. He got into HGTV. He won Design Star. He has a tattoo addiction, okay, and he freely admits it. His first tattoo was a dragonfly because that was his design company. I find him fascinating. But what he does is he takes people that have won the lottery that look like all of us, look just like us, and they often get a new home. And he says that he grew up poor. He came from a very small town. I do think they had a stoplight. I think there was 2,000 people. I mean, so he grew up very poor, not known. But then look where he's come. He gets $70,000 an episode. He's worth between $2 to $4 million. It depends on what you look at, and has a wild following. Okay, but he says the reason he can relate to people is that he was poor at one time. So when they come to him, he says he tries to say, don't be buying one of these bongo houses. He tries to find out, what do you really need? What would make you happy? What would bring you joy? Now, I've seen some of it's just like any realtor. They show you, kind of in your price range, and then they show you that house that's a little bit outside your price range, and doesn't it just, it's just perfect. But now he still does that because he's working with realtors, okay? And it's a show. I did try to find out if it's fake, but I couldn't find that out. Okay, so let's talk about lottery for a second. 70, in some data, says 70%. The lowest I saw was 30%, but I'm going to stay with 70. The people that win the lottery go bankrupt because they don't know how to manage that money. They do not have a relationship with the bank, and what they tell you is if you win the lottery, the first thing you should do is talk to your financial advisor. Okay, now probably some people in here have financial advisors, but do you think anybody in the poor circle has a financial advisor? No, so they don't know what to do, and remember, it's about relationships. They find out you have money, okay, you've got money. When it gets announced, then suddenly you come up and you go, hey, you know me, I need some tires. Hey, you know me, my kid's hungry, I need some money. A lot of people start coming out of the woodwork to get a piece of that money. And because relationships are so important, often they help. They think, I've got it, I can help, okay? But 70% often, because they say, have a relationship or talk to your financial advisor, and many people have no idea. And I don't think the state says, oh, hey, you just got this walloping amount of money, let me help you. They just take your picture and advertise it like crazy because they want that seduction to keep occurring. Why couldn't that be me? Why couldn't I have gotten that ticket? And you all probably heard, I don't know if it's an urban legend, but the lady who, they did a gift exchange at their work, and she put a lottery ticket in, and the woman won like, $100,000 or something crazy. And then that lady was like, well, I want part of it. And the other lady was like, oh, hey, no, that was my gift. So you think, how would you handle that? What would be the right thing to do? But I find him fascinating. Does anybody watch him? Isn't he kind of wild? I mean, now my husband hates him, okay? He'll go, turn that off, okay? So my husband doesn't like him at all, but I do think he's kind of interesting. So why it appeals is they hope for quick financial change. They want to live the good life. They want to escape financial stress, okay? They think this is a way to do it. It's ubiquitous. I love that word. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. About every convenience store you can buy a lottery ticket. It's on the news. They do commercials. They basically shove it down our throats, okay? So it's here. Target marketing. I mean, they're going after young kids with sports betting, and let me just, I am not necessarily a fan of this gentleman. He's highly conservative. His name is Cal Thomas. Been a syndicated columnist for over 50 years. He even came out with an article that said, we have entered a new uncontrolled vice that we do not have a handle on how to help. That's why all of y'all are in here. That's why y'all are working for that higher education. That's why this group is trying to get the word out. It is a huge problem. I talked to you about vets. They're targeting certain people. Men are 2 times more likely to gamble than women. So a lot of the machoism, the testosterone in some of these ads, it's to appeal to the guys, Okay, not to say that women don't, I don't mean that, but they are more at risk, okay? So we know this, financial, social, mental health, it's all kinds of issues. The people that have access to funds that they think they can use and then win and put back and have a shortfall. Or the person who lost their job but thinks, I can do it. Or they think they've got a secret, they've got a strategy, and I've got to hit it. Or the fallacy of hit heads 5 times in a row, what's going to happen on that 6th one, you know? And it's seductive, guys. It really gets in there, just like drugs and alcohol and everything else. They crave it, they want it. The body is pumping dopamine and pumping adrenaline, and you get to do that risk-taking, and it's a fever. It does not stop. So I applaud you for what you're trying to do. I got to go to Vegas recently to see Wizard of Oz at the Sphere. That's like my favoriteest movie ever, and that was something for me. But obviously you had to go through all the gambling things. You don't do slots anymore. You don't put money in and pull a thing. You still pull the thing, but you have to get a credit card, or it's like a credit card. You go check in, they want to know everything about you. I mean, everything. They take your picture, they want to see your credit card, and then you load so much money on it, and then you go play with that. Well, you know, just think about that. They're tracking you. They're tracking everything about you. Okay, so in some of the stuff, and they're trying to look at how can we help gamblers that are in trouble. So let's see what the solution is. Okay, I love this. Big study done. Big study. Can't imagine how much money. Gambling makes poor people poor and exacerbates existing poverty. Now, they did a study on that. They did a study to say that. This to me was a duh-wee moment, okay? If you're wealthy and you lose $100, no big deal. When you look at borrowing money, okay, poor often barter. When I went and gave WIC out in the communities for moms that had just had babies, they would barter that formula sometimes. We knew they were doing it. Some of the foods they would get, a lot of bartering goes on. I can give you a haircut, then what can you do for me? A lot of that's gone on, okay? I've lost my train of thought. I am so sorry. I have totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I don't remember what I was going to tell you. But I'm sorry. That doesn't happen to me. Okay. The only reason I bring this up is in color, is all I want you to see, is the orange lines and then the blue lines. Can you all see those? Okay. So the lottery payments to the state, this is what we're getting, the orange line. The blue boxes are what we're getting from the electronic betting, the casinos. We're getting a very small portion. So when I saw that, the only reason I put it up there is I love a visual. You can kind of see. And remember, 4 times more people are doing the blue than they're doing the orange.
But sorry.
Go ahead. No.
But which circle? Like who?
Okay. His question was which circle? Gambling's in all circles, okay? So don't think it, but in the poor circle, remember it exacerbates. They say that, okay, let me make sure I say this correct. If you bet within 3 years of your first bet, whatever it is, it will be 8 times higher than what you initially started with. So like if you start with $1 and you keep betting, in 3 years, you're going to be betting $8. Does that make sense? You keep increasing, okay? The poorest 1% in zip codes, on average, spend $600 a year in lottery tickets. Now you got to remember, lottery tickets. And we get revenue, good revenue, from the lottery tickets that helps with education, but we don't get it. So if they're spending that much, remember, on average, 4 times more money is spent in electronic betting than it is in lottery tickets. That's significant, okay? So now, and I know this one's kind of hard to see, but this is when more than half of the revenue collected from the slots returns to the industry. So in Kentucky's wisdom, and we're one of the lowest percentage states across the United States, when they said, we're going to have betting and we're going to do all this, because betting was around before Kentucky was even formed as a commonwealth or a state. Okay, and then we had Churchill Downs, and I think it was 1883 was developed. So we've had horse racing going on for a long time. So then they say, we're gonna work on this and see what we can do. Well, they bring half the horse industry in. So whose back do you think they were worried about? So a bulk of the money goes back to the thoroughbred industry and not to the state. Okay? We are one of the lowest. So this money, at this thing, it was $75 million. That sounds like a lot of money, but you're talking about 120 counties across Kentucky. It's not really that much money. We could get a whole lot more, and that $75 million is supposed to cover your assistance programs, the administrative fees, pension for the people working. So really, when you start whacking that away, that's really not that much money. So one of the things, and I have this on one of the last slides, is to say, we need to work on this. We need to legislate for there being more money. We need the thoroughbred industry. That brings in lots of money to the Commonwealth. Some of the top stuff for us besides thoroughbred is bourbon, which is a big issue right now with the tariffs, okay? We're also a good automotive state or automotive supplier state, and then transportation, because we're so close to, we got UPS, and we got everything, we've got really big hubs here, Amazon Prime, we've got warehouses, so we're really known for that, okay? So when you look at this, you think, but they could give more money. You're from Lexington. I mean, I've seen some of those horse farms where the barns truly are nicer than my home. And I love my home. I'm happy with it, but do you know what I mean? Again, you want to say, when's enough enough? Okay? Because the wealthy often only give money if they can have their name on something, or it's going to be a legacy, or it's going to get their kid into the school that they want to. Middle class carries the burden of keeping a community going. And remember, it's getting stretched thinner. You're being asked everywhere for money and donations. It's just exploded because so many people are trying to help. But you don't get the donations like that from the wealthy. And they have the money, okay? They've got the money. Okay, so what can we do? Build relationships grounded in mutual respect. That is in anything you do, okay? Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Be nice to them. At the health department, I used to have to preach to people, thank you for coming in. I'm glad you're here. And I had to argue. If you were late, they'd say, not going to let them see. No, they got here. They got here. We are going to see them. Now, was that popular? No, okay? But it changed. When I took over prenatal clinic, we had a 36% no-show rate. It's staggering. With the work we did, we got it down to less than 3. Okay? You have to treat people like people. You got to understand where they're coming from. We did a no smoking campaign, and in all the literature it said, got to get them to quit, got to get them to quit. And I know you're sitting here and I just keep picking on you, but we'd say, any you can cut back, we're going to applaud. We're going to applaud. You cut back a half a pack, oh, honey, that is wonderful, because it might be very hard for you to quit. And that may be a goal that you can't achieve. So you have to work with people. You have to understand where they're coming from and recognize those positive steps. Now that same no smoking program recognizes any cutback. But when I did it, we got a lot of flack. You've got to get them to quit. They've got to quit. And I kept arguing, if I can get them to cut back, I'm happy with that. That helps that baby. You have to, pardon?
Harm reduction is much more effective.
Yes. Okay, understand person's life circumstances before making assumptions. And that, oh gosh, I see this all the time. Now, it just happened on the news, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Adam Sandler, the actor, do y'all know who I'm talking about? Nods, thank you. His daughter went into like a real high-end purse store. Like I've never been in one of these purse stores, but apparently bags are thousands of dollars. Well, she had on like, bummy clothes, because, kids often don't dress up anymore. They look like they just got out of bed. Yeah. So they were really rude to her. It's kind of like Pretty Woman. Do y'all remember Pretty Woman okay. So she tells her daddy, well then he comes in his, SUV with his Secret Service people and comes in and buys every purse in the store and basically says, F you. to them, because they judged her, We do it all the time. Middle class is horrible about it. Because we're looking at your clothes, we're looking at your shoes, we're looking at your purse, what kind of car you drive, because that helps us kind of know where we are in relationship with you, okay? Kind of makes sense? All right. Offer holistic, well, what happened here? There it goes. I don't know how to do this, but and I am not the experts that you all are, I'm so not. But when I started researching this, now my phone is besieged with sports betting and gambling. My computer, that's what all the ads are. It's all related to gambling now, which is like, wow. But really, the funding that you all need for assistance, because they say in Kentucky, at least 8% currently are at risk of gambling addictions. 8%. Now remember, we're 4 million, so that gets you some good math there. And they're thinking it's going to explode because more and more betting is going on. There's betting like, who do you think in the next 5 minutes is going to need to go to the bathroom? I mean, there's bets on stupid stuff like that. I mean, it's not just, picking something big to win or hitting the lottery. It's all kinds of stuff they're doing, and people are buying into it. And because we have a phone, that's sort of like a toilet now, okay? Know what I mean that? It used to be that people didn't have plumbing. Okay, remember? There was outhouses and stuff like that. And then we got indoor plumbing, and then everybody got indoor plumbing. And then we started getting 2 and 3 bathrooms or powder rooms and all that kind of stuff. Well, it used to be the same thing with cell phones. Nobody had cell phones. And when they got a cell phone, it was the rich and now everybody has a cell phone, okay? But there is so much power in that cell phone, and a lot of betting can be done right there. And it's with them all the time. Okay, now, you saw me look because I thought I had my phone with me. I purposely left my phone in the car, okay, because I figured about 5 minutes into me talking, somebody'd call, or I'd get a spam call, or, something crazy would happen. Okay. But you can't blame people for having a cell phone. And I hear that a lot. I'll say, well, they got a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. And it is, because it's going to get worse too. You can pay for everything, you can do everything on your cell phone. But just know there is so much seduction in that device that a lot of people don't even know how to use it correctly, okay? And offer holistic methods of treatment. As a nurse, I can tell you in my 40 plus years as a nurse, a lot of things. Used to be, nurses couldn't talk about anything mental health. That was all left up to y'all. We couldn't talk about anything with teeth because we took the teeth out of the mouth and dentist only, okay? It doesn't work that way. All of it comes together. That's why I'm convinced when Ronsel and I did that program, we just acted like this is the way it works. You're going to see me, and then you're going to see her, and then you're going to see the doctor, and this is how it worked. We did great work because they weren't threatened. They were being treated just like everybody else. And we just did some remarkable work. I mean, I get good. Now, we don't do prenatal clinic because our clinic got so good, the numbers got so good, the doctors in our community said, we'll just take it. We'll take it over. We got it, okay? So do you follow what I'm saying? Because it was money. There was money with this. Okay, so we've got very few minutes, but I want to tell you, I'm a library fan. There are all kinds of books in the library that talk about poverty. There's all kinds of things that can absolutely cause you aha moments. Poverty by America is an excellent book, excellent book. $2 a day living on almost nothing. I mean, powerful books, and people are doing this. They're surviving with this. I cannot say enough about going to the library and using some of these resources. Now, we've got, 2 minutes maybe or something? About 10, did you say? Okay, cool. All right. So, I mean, and the rest for this is, I say this all the time. We have to stay positive. In all the muck and mire, we have to stay positive. Your circle can be your circle. So I can tell you, a lot of times I turn the news off. I'm tired of hearing it. I turn the radio off and just have quiet in the car. But I do tell everybody, and I've been saying this for years, just keep smiling. There's good out there. There is so much good going on in the world. We don't hear about that. It's just like at work. By gosh, you do something wrong, they're on you. But they don't tell you the 99 other times that you did excellent stuff. Often we forget to do that. But we should say thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for letting me come and do this. I absolutely love it. And it has changed my life. Okay? From when I worked in ER and met people that couldn't sign their names. I'd never experienced that before. So, it really can every day affect you. So what do y'all want to put in circles? Do you all have something you want to put in circles? Somebody talked about funeral homes. We kind of touched on that. Yes, ma'am.
I was thinking about when you mentioned the phones, that AI, we're going to start seeing some differentiation between people that can afford information, and with prediction markets going to take over gambling pretty soon, that we're going to have kind of a strategic advantage if we have access to information by having the upgraded AI plans.
Well, okay, and that, and please know I am not a gambling expert, but from stuff I read, there's a fallacy with that.
Correct.
That even if the AI says, bet on, 10 red, it's not going to happen. But I think that phone is going to make it worse. And I think we're going to start seeing, it's not the wealthy we have to worry about. It's these people in the margins that we have to worry about.
They're going to think they have an edge, and
Right.
they're going to be like on there using this like skill-based kind of reason.
That they really don't have. And the only thing I can say is we've got to keep emphasizing the house wins. The house wins. Bankruptcy rates, it's 25 to 35% more in the people in poverty. Auto loan failures is like 5% once they've started gambling because they don't have the money. And I can tell you in the health department, big problem for us is when we worked at the health department and then I was involved in CASA, some children would get removed from a home, okay? But we were still working with the mom, or the mother of the baby, trying to see what was going to happen. And they sometimes would come in with a new tattoo or a tongue piercing. And I can tell you my own, when they come talk to me like that because they just gotten a new, I'm like, wait, whoa, hey, that cost you $75 to $100. You could have used that money more wisely. That's a teaching moment, okay? Now, they're in the me, my mode, because that's really all they're thinking about. But we've got to kind of move them toward, you're really involved now with this institutional thing and how it's going to affect the community, if your child gets taken from you. Because sometimes they just don't see it that way. They just say, well, everybody else had the tongue ring. And I'm not lying. When she came to me, I just about lost my mind, you all. So I realized that, and you can have a tongue ring I don't care. That's not the issue. But what is your priorities? And where are the role models? If you remember what the circle looked like when poor, it was not pretty, convenience stores, loan sharks everywhere, it's not good lighting, trash everywhere, people out and all that. Who's the role model in there? Often, I hate to tell you this, it's the drug dealer or something like that that's got the really nice car and a wad of cash. Well, that's who they want to be. That's what they want. They want that wealth. And often kids get suckered into stuff because, as Ronsalyn said in her introduction, their brains aren't even developed yet. And we're giving them awesome responsibilities. And we're giving them a phone that can do anything. So my son works for Vanderbilt, the hospital, and does IT stuff. Now, he isn't the person you call for help. He does programming and all that kind of stuff. And he says AI is going to change everything. But I don't know enough about AI to really address it. It scares me. And I saw, it was on a show or news or maybe CBS Sunday Morning, which is my favorite show on TV. They had a girl made by AI as an actress. And she was beautiful. She was beautiful. Every guy's dream, of how she looked and all. But she wasn't real. But she looked real and she acted real. And we know, if you're on Facebook, a lot of the stuff there is garbage. For lack of a better term, people have created. So I don't know where it's going, but I don't see it as good. I don't. Okay.
With that AI programming for online gambling, it's going to be synonymous with the way we look at horse racing handicapping.
Yes.
We want to go to the wizard, you know, we want to go to somebody who's going to have good odds of telling me who's going to win the next race. And, you know, you have to pay for that service.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't get it right all the time, and so now you're stuck. Oh, this is what somebody told me, right? So when you look at the service, people who are looking to find the edge, find the end, find the way I can win this thing, that's going to really be more popular.
People often think if they're involved in something, they know a whole lot about it, and they really don't. You know, I can tell you, when I graduated nursing, I graduated top of my class. I did everything like you were supposed to. Great. I got out first year, it was astonishing how little I knew. You know, I mean, it was just mind-boggling. But a lot of people, when they get caught in that, drug users think they know all the stuff about drugs. I guess it's the same thing with gambling. They think they know how to place a bet or how to wager a bet, when to wager it. You know, and I am not knowledgeable about gambling. I've learned a lot, but I'm not knowledgeable of that. But I think you're right. I think AI is something we really need to watch what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know people that actually use AI to do, like, say, what's the numbers for Powerball, like, what's the, yeah, all the time, like, and I'm just like.
I love the commercial. I haven't seen it in a long time where the guys, like, they announce the numbers and he's dancing around the house because it's the numbers they always play, and then the whoever on the side didn't buy the ticket. You know, and, you know, he comes in, he goes, we won. She was like, oh, I didn't buy the ticket. Because a lot of people think, well, if I keep doing this, but insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Okay? But a lot of people get caught up into that. Okay, they're telling me my time's up. I cannot thank you all enough. This has been wonderful.